Okay, that was quite a day. All right, everyone, so welcome to Edmond Civic Roundtable, and our mission is to empower neighbors through information, through unbiased information. And we are very pleased today to have the mayor and key management of our city here. We're here because we love this city, and we want good things to happen in this city. And so one of the things we want to be mindful of in the meeting is we're very much dedicated to civil discourse. So part of that is assuming good intent. And many of you remember Will Rogers, and someone said to him, he said he never met a man he didn't like. And a lot of people couldn't understand that. And they said, surely there's somebody you don't like. And he clarified, no. What I'm trying to say is when I meet someone, I'm assuming they're meeting me with good intentions. And so I like everybody I meet for the first time. And so that's what we do here, is we want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and to hear what they have to say. We're also seeking common ground. There was a story I heard recently about one of Ted Kennedy's staffers, and Senator Kennedy wanted him to have lunch with one of the staff members of the opposition party, and the young staffer was balking and complaining and says, I'm not going to, get with that guy. Yeah. And finally, Ted Kennedy said, yes, you are. If you're going to work for me, you're going to go to lunch with him. And let me tell you what you're going to do. When you go to lunch with him, you're going to listen very carefully to what he says. And the minute he says something you can agree with, you're going to say, that is fascinating. Tell me more. And lo and behold, there was a lot of bipartisan legislation that got done during those sessions at that time. Another one is we are open-minded and we're willing to learn. And we're willing to be wrong. Ronald Reagan quoted a Russian proverb during his negotiations with Mikhail Gorbachev on the nuclear limitation treaties, and it was trust but verify. And that goes both ways. It's not just, trust what someone tells you but verify, but it's also whatever you think, you need to verify that and have the humility to change your mind upon further information. And also we have to have the courage to hold our own perspective, our own party, our own friends accountable. No one's perfect, and instead of going right down party lines, there's sort of truth on both sides. And so we have to have the courage to hold whatever team we feel we're on accountable. And then last but not least is we can all attempt to understand each other with civility. How many of you are here for the first time? So, well, thank you. We're glad you're here for the first. Hope you come back. There's many of you, and fortunately, as the years have gone by, a lot of you have been here, before. But there was a time where I would ask that question, and half the room would raise their hand. It was their first time here. But many of you who've been here before remember me talking about JFK in his inaugural address when he said, civility is not a sign of weakness, but sincerity is always subject to proof. So we're here today. We're committed to civil dialogue. We want to learn from each other. And Mackie Gunther, Mackie, where are you right now in the room? Mackie is one of our board members. He's a young rising star in the community. Don't mean to make you blush, but we appreciate you, Mackie. Mackie's going to be our master of ceremonies, and he's going to take it from here. Mackie, thank you.
Thank you, Gil. As Gil said, my name is Mackie Gunther. I'm a member of the board of ECR as well as our programs and planning committee. Thank you all again for being here tonight. Tonight we're going to be creating a space for you to ask questions of Mayor Mike Rosen and some of the executive department directors following Mike's, or Mayor Rosen's, State of the City address 3 weeks ago in this room. We only have 90 minutes tonight, so in the interest of working efficiently, we have divided the night into 3 sections. The first is that we invited folks in advance to submit questions. We're going to be answering as many of those questions as time allows. We hope that the questions that we get to in that portion are going to be useful to you. It's probably not a surprise that we received far more questions than we have time for. And some of the submissions we received were maybe closer to statements than questions. So that being said, if you weren't able to get your question answered tonight, we have passed all of them on to the mayor and department directors. And even if you don't hear it, it has made its way to the top of the chain. Some of you also came with questions tonight and submitted them to a bowl that was previously at the front of the room, and now we've taken it away from you. If you haven't done that, note cards are still there. We'll be drawing some of those questions from the bowl and answering those also in front of the whole room. And finally, Mayor Rosen asked that he and the directors be given some time to respond individually to questions in more of a conversation format. So for the last part of our evening together, we'll have the room open for you to meet individually with the department directors. You can see their names are posted on the wall. They'll be positioned there so you can meet them individually and in small groups and have more of have a little more intimacy there. So Mayor Rosen will start us off with his remarks. The directors will introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll move into the question and answer part of the program. Thanks for coming tonight. Mike, I'll hand it off to you.
I'll do that after you speak. Huh? After you speak. Okay. That's all right. We choreographed all this. I'm going to stand up here for a second, and then I'm going to go over there because that's where the slides are. Thank you for coming tonight. You had lots of options, sporting events, sunshine. So it speaks well of you that you're here, or maybe not well of you that you're here. I was asked to just give a couple of comments, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about city stuff, and I'm not going to at the beginning. I want to talk more about us as a community a little bit. And I just have a few slides, but they are over here, so you don't have to twist back and forth. I'll come over here. So if you're like me, I wake up every morning, and first thing I do is start reading news. And I look at a lot of different news sources. And just over the weekend, I just grabbed a few headlines, right? So Russian attack killing 5. The president's going to rain down hell on Iran. A baby was killed in a stroller in New York. The labor market is being called whiplash. Eye drops, millions of them are being recalled. And there's a mega news tsunami threat, right? So anybody who opens up the headlines and starts reading what's going on, it's like, wow, what a great way to start a day. And this happens day after day after day. And then a long time ago, there's this sort of false concern that I see put out there. When I walked a long time ago, when I walked into my first Kmart, every cash register had TYFSAK on it. And I was like, what? And then I started listening to the cashiers saying, thank you for shopping at Kmart. And right? So they put the little reminder on every cash register to show their sincerity for every customer. Thank you for shopping at Kmart. And then I started, noticing that we care, right? So how many ads in how many industries say we care? And it amazes me that healthcare providers use that as their differential. We care. Shouldn't that be like the lowest possible bar for healthcare providers? But CBS cares, and the Cracker cares, and apparently Volkswagen cares too much. And this sort of false sense, and you start getting a little cynical because everybody's like, no, really, we care. And, then there was COVID, and that did a number on us, right? We got really grumpy during COVID. And, this is a recent study that said almost half of Americans are feeling that we're getting ruder, that we are continuing to be rude as a result of COVID. We're grumpy. We have good reason to be grumpy. That's what we are surrounded with. And I'm guessing that you all have felt this once or twice in a week or two. In fact, we are so grumpy that Oxford, this is the 2026 word of the year, where rage bait, where people do it and get, because they want more attention. So it just keeps escalating and escalating so that you can, it becomes self-perpetuating. And it can become normalized. So even, there are studies like if I write you a letter and say, hey, you were one of the top 1% of people who conserved water last year, thank you so much for doing it. Science says you're gonna use more water. What? I'm taking short showers, my grass is brown, that you use more because it's normalized. By even saying thank you for doing the right thing, it becomes normalized. And that's what this does. It starts escalating and become normalizing. And even when we shine a spotlight on saying, isn't this horrible, it becomes normalized. And I'm here to tell you, that's not us in Edmonds. It goes on and we see it, but that is not us. And before we are voters or commentators or activists or even critics, here in Edmonds, we're people. And statistically, everybody in this room statistically is dealing with something like this. 1 in 6 of you are taking medication for a mental health issue. 1 in 5 have at least one chronic health condition. 1 in 4 are giving caregivers to an aging parent. 1 in 4 experienced abuse or neglect as a child. 1 in 2 of the women in this room have experienced sexual abuse. 1 in 2 of you are feeling lonely, and 100% of us have experienced loss. That is who we are. That is what we all carry around. And I think we need to be sensitive and empathetic to that. And I think we are here in Edmonds. And so we live in this place, but here in Edmonds, we share our streets, our water, we share our emergencies, and we share, look at this place, right? You all chose to live here, and that's part of why you choose to live here. And we also share our future. And whether we disagree or agree with things, I sort of believe that here in Edmonds, we reject that behavior. Certainly we see symptoms of it, but as a whole, this city, I believe, rejects it. I've been in places, TYSFAK, right, where people don't look up at you or they want you to feel lucky that you're here. One of the things that I found amazingly attractive of this place is you walk down the street, people make eye contact and they smile. You walk into any kind of a retailer or a restaurant and people do look up at you and they'll engage with you. Sometimes it's a little annoying how long they engage with the person in front of you, but that is the kind of experience we have. We reject that. So even though that is something we share in common that's going on nationally, we share all of this, and I said that already. So when I say tonight it's an Edmonds kind of day, emphasis on kind, right? Because that is what I believe we are, and to the rest of the country, I sort of want to say, yeah, go ahead and fight amongst yourselves. That's just not how we do it here in Edmonds. We will disagree, and we will talk about it. And look at this room tonight. There are a lot of people in here who I know have a lot of concerns about a lot of issues, but we talk about it and we get there. When I'm doing Ask the Mayor on the street, most of the people who come up to me have something that they want to express some concern about. They never do it without a smile and a conversation, and it's very, very respectful. It is an Edmonds kind of day with respect, empathy, and friendliness. We are so friendly that for 9 years in a row, they stopped asking the question, what is the friendliest city in Western Washington? We won it 9 years in a row, and they stopped asking, right? Because that is the case. So, quick show of hands, let's test this out. How many of you are comfortable with disagreement, but not with conversations that turn personal or hostile? See what I mean? Another quick show of hands. How many of you volunteer for a nonprofit or donate to nonprofits? See, this is who we are. I looked at the IRS to see how many nonprofits there were in Edmonds. Over 400 organizations are tax exempt here. I got to believe per capita, nobody comes close to that. Now, certainly some of those are family foundations, but this is a list of over 200 nonprofits, many of the names you recognize, and that's nowhere near a full list. That we are people who volunteer, who donate, who create solutions to problems, and we do it together. And, we're going to be celebrating that soon, and we're working with nonprofit organizations throughout the community to sort of celebrate the service and the people who do serve in Edmonds, and you'll be hearing more about that. When I think about community engagement, it sort of falls into 4 categories, or 5 categories. See, I can count. I'm your mayor. Trust me with your budget. There's sort of the uber engaged, the people who are like sending me over 100 emails a year. There's the active participants who, they stay in touch and they are engaged and they come to council meetings or these kinds of meetings. I would argue that in this room are those 2 categories, the uber engaged and the active participants. Then there's the situationally engaged, those individuals like when we're talking about a very specific subject. And I know some of the faces here tonight are here because of a very specific subject that they are interested in. And those are, this is important to me, this issue. I want to be a part of that solution. There are observers, so these are people who are tracking stuff. They aren't necessarily jumping in, but they're keeping track of stuff in real time. And then there are the disengaged, and there are lots of reasons for that to happen. We're busy, we have all those things going on in our lives that I mentioned earlier, but there's sort of these different levels of engagement. And it's our job. We serve at your pleasure, and all of you for all those different activities and interest levels. So whether we hear from you on an hourly basis or never hear from you, it is our job to serve you all. I mentioned at the State of the City, there's sort of a hot list. Last year I shared my long list of things that were important to me to get done. I sort of created this hot list. There are certainly more things. I know many of you in this room would argue that there are things not on this list that should be. It's just the one that's underlined and bolded that I just want to highlight, that we have a structural problem. The costs go up faster than revenues, period. That's it. I mean, we have this problem. It's been going on for a long time. The city has done a lot of things to try to not keep up with it, but we are not alone. There is not a city, there are very few cities around us that do not have this kind of a problem, and there aren't that many in the country that aren't facing this. 25 of the top cities in the country couldn't pay their bills last year. Nobody is making it up, and over and over and over, there is science behind it. We have to solve this. We have to figure out what is the city we want and what are we willing to pay for it, or what services do we not want. It's choices. It's all choices. Here's the money we're willing to pay. Here are the things we want, and we got to find that balance. It's up to us as a group to do that. And that's what I and this group and the council need to be working on. So that's all I got for opening comments, and I'll turn it over to you for what's next.
Thank you, Mike. So at this time, I'm going to ask the executive staff who are here with us tonight to introduce themselves. They've got microphones. That's fantastic. So if we can start maybe down here with Angie and then go down the line. Thank you. If you could just share your name, how long you've been in your current position, and what you did before this.
Good evening. My name is Angie Fesser, Parks Recreation Director. I've been at the city a week over 6 years, so started April 1st, 2020. And prior to working here, I was the Parks Recreation Facilities Director for the city of Sammamish.
Good evening. My name is Richard Gould. I've been with the city. This is the start of my 14th month here. Prior to this, I worked as a finance manager for the city of Port Townsend.
Hello, hello. My name is Andy Rayum. I have been here 4 months. I'm the Public Works Director. Prior to that, I was the Public Works Director in the city of Anacortes, which is just like here, but just a little further away.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lloyd Dawkins, Police Chief. I've been in my position for 8 whole months, but I've been here with the city of Edmonds, starting as Assistant Chief, effective, 4 years as of April Fool's Day, and that's not a joke. Prior to that, I was with King County Sheriff's Office for just about 21 years in a variety of positions.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brad Shipley. I've been with the city for about 12 years. Current position for just since the beginning of this year. Currently the planning manager. Prior to this, I worked with the Green Futures Lab out of UW.
Hi, everyone. I'm Todd Tatum. I'm the acting city administrator for the city of Edmond. It's a new position. I've been in it since August of last year. Before that, I was a community services and economic development director, a position I started in August of 22 here for the city. And then before that, I was the development division manager for Washington State Parks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So to start off the questions for this evening, this is a question for Andy with Public Works and Mike, the mayor. Keep calling him Mike. You guys got to get tired of the mayor thing every time. The wastewater treatment plant biosolids gasification system, which is designed to process solids from wastewater, is $28 million and counting. What is the city's fully burdened total cost, including debt service rate increases and life cycle maintenance over the next 20 to 30 years?
All right, thank you for the question. So we pulled the numbers. So the total project cost to date is $29,378,000 for construction, $8,927,000 for hauling costs of the untreated biosolids, $1,095,000 for Eco Remedies operation and maintenance contract. So total to date, that's $39,400,000. Ongoing annual cost is an estimate. We have not operated the system for an extended period of time, so we don't know really for sure, but we're estimating it to be about $2 million a year. And then the piece about the financing, so when utilities borrow money, they do different things with it. So we do have a bond that we're paying off, but it's not just for the wastewater treatment plant gasification system. So it would take a lot more to try to delve into like how much rate or interest we'll pay while we pay that bond off.
I'm just going to add two things. One, to just clarify that I think the question related to the solid side of the house, and there's the water side of the house. So that is specifically to the gasifier system that you've all heard about. And so we understood the question to be that. In terms of upcoming things, the state is considering new regulations on nitrogen. I was going to say nitrogen, and then I doubted myself. So there are potentially new regulations coming on nitrogen, which would affect not just us, but every wastewater treatment plant. Depending on that decision, that could be a significant hit to the city. So not just our city, anybody with a wastewater treatment plant. So that is something that we're keeping an eye on. That is also out there in the future, and we will keep you up to date on that as we hear more.
I think this one's going to be a crowd pleaser. This one's for Chief Dawkins and Mayor Rosen. Multiple public safety incidents involving e-motorcycles have been reported to police, including riding on school grounds, cutting off vehicles, speeding, violating traffic laws, and damaging public property, such as tracks and baseball fields. What steps are being taken to address these issues?
I think I'll start. This is a touchy subject. First of all, let's talk a little bit about some of the good things that come out of these vehicles, right? We get kids outside, that's one thing, but they have to do so safely. There are a number of complexities behind this, and right now, some of the challenges are the definitions of e-bikes versus motorcycles. So in short, we've been working with a number of departments here in the city. We've worked with parks, we have worked with our schools, and ironically, this is something that's on my all supervisors meeting that we're having tomorrow so that we can talk about this as well. But for now, our key is education. We want to educate the public. We want to make sure that parents understand that they could be liable for damages caused by the children, or the riders, I shouldn't say just children, because we see young adults on these things too. And you can see in the city of Seattle and in other cities where people are getting hurt, especially a lot of tourists, they'll jump on these things and just take off with them, right? So right now we're trying to use opportunities to educate our community, educate parents, educate the youth going into the schools. We have some schools that don't even allow these anymore. So that's what we're doing for now, and trying to work on some creative means of keeping everybody safe on these.
Yes, and so to address the issue of these types of vehicles in parks, Edmonds City Code does not allow for motorized vehicles in parks, and that is defined as any vehicle including motorbikes, motorcycles, e-bikes, any bike that has a motor attached to it. Even those motorized scooters, by definition, are not allowed. Where it becomes a little tricky is if you have a bicycle like an e-bike, you can pedal or you can use the power of the motor. And so how do you regulate when a bike of that caliber is moving through your park? And what do you how do you kind of monitor that? And there are different classifications of e-bikes and how fast they can go and how powerful they are. We definitely do not want any behavior in our parks that damage our parks or frighten people, make people uncomfortable by moving really quickly, frighten wildlife, tear up the trails, and do that type of activity. So, but at this time, bikes are allowed in our parks, which we do want people in our parks being active and enjoying the environment. So it is a fine balance. We do work with police quite a bit on this issue. In our park, Civic Park is a good example. It's right across from the police station where we tend to sometimes have that type of activity that's not desirable. So police will step out and have a little conversation with education. We like to do education before enforcement. So that's kind of where we are for parks.
I did want to add one other thing. If you see unsafe behavior or concerning behavior, please call 911. We will show up, we will at least try to look for them, and we will address them. So please, do not hesitate to call 911. I say that all the time. That's what we're here for.
Thank you very much. This question's for Richard. There has been, given the scale of the financial challenges ahead of the city, what are your thoughts on financial oversight through a citizen-led committee?
That's a good question. Like the mayor said, we're here to serve the public. And my office is always open to meeting with people who have questions about any aspect of the financial situation or financial reports. So however this comes out, we're here to serve from the finance department to help out whatever the public needs in that area.
So I have slides for this question. They did tell us this was coming. Before I do talk about it, I did want to acknowledge that Councilmember Nan and Councilmember Payne are also here. Just wanted to make sure you knew they were here. So again, this was the question. Given the scale of the financial challenges, what are your thoughts about establishing a financial oversight through a citizen-led committee? So I absolutely, let's be clear, I absolutely believe residents must be involved in decisions that impact them. That has to be the case. I absolutely believe that the city must do better at public engagement. I have said those words over and over. In fact, I have said at times I felt that public engagement that the city was doing was insulting. Nobody in this country has nailed it. We are doing a lot. If you were at the State of the City, I gave a very long list of the things we are doing, but we can do better and we must do better. And in terms of a committee advisory group, now the slide said oversight. I'm going to use the word advisory committee. We are working on coming up with a plan for that now. So I'm working on the assumption that this is going to be the case. But I also want to share some personal observations about as this topic has evolved over time, I've had a few thoughts. So when I hear that, when people say, we need a citizen advisory group or a citizen oversight, what I'm hearing is, okay, so the state auditors come every year and they spend like eight months with us, Richard, right now, right? So they're with us like 8 months. This is what they do, all they do. We pay over $100,000 for them to look, and we need a citizen group to do this. So we don't trust the auditors. I would argue that the city council is exactly, by definition, a citizen oversight committee. That is, by definition, their job, and you all elect who those people are. So we don't trust them either. Don't trust me, don't trust the finance department, don't trust the directors. So we want a citizen advisory committee because we don't trust this, is what I hear when I hear those words. So I also want to point out that I haven't found another city that has more formal, when I tell people how many boards and commissions that we have in other cities, it's more than, I have not found another city anywhere that has more of them, which is community members formally advising us. And then I've also not found another mayor who has personally created more task forces and created more requests from the community formally to give us advice on a number of topics. So I just, as an observation, I'm going to go back to what I said. We're going to do this, and I think it's important to do, and we must do it, but I really need to say in context this. So when people say to me, and I talk to a lot of people about this, and I say, tell me more, they'll say, well, you should do this because the Blue Ribbon Panel recommended it. Or they'll say, because community members are asking for it. This is why we need it. We need to build trust. We want them, this isn't my list, this is what people have said. We need a community advisory group to tell us how much we should put into a levy. We should have, they shouldn't have authority, but they should be a third-party advisors on, we like your process. I've heard that. There are a lot of smart people in Edmonds, so this would create access to some really smart people, and residents should have a voice. So these are the different reasons that I have heard from people on why this should happen. You can see there's a wide variety. When I'm faced with a problem, I usually start with, okay, let me define what is the problem I'm trying to solve. So you saw when I asked people, those were different definitions of the problem. And then, okay, then what is the purpose if I'm gonna, if the solution is, so what is the problem I'm trying to solve? The solution is, in this case, we're gonna create an advisory group. Then we need to decide what is their charter, what is their purpose and their scope. How do we choose them? What is the selection criteria? Is this open to everybody? Are there geographic standards? Do they need any kind of expertise or experience? How will we recruit them, and what is the duration of them? So these are the kinds of questions we would ask. But again, all that was just to say, in context, as this conversation has gone on, I have tried to probe. So if we're going to do this, let's make sure we're doing it for the right reason and what people are asking for. And you can see I saw a variety of reasons that people were doing it. In my mind, we are talking about our future. It is a big decision. I think as we're talking about it, there is a feeling that if we create this kind of a group, that it should be facilitated by somebody outside. And Mike Rosen, the mayor, should not be in the room unless he's asked to be in the room, so that we can make it purely a community advisory group and not being influenced by me. So a long answer to that question, but I know people have been talking about it for a while.
All right. Related to that question, members of our community regularly surface issues of trust. Do you believe there is an issue of trust in our community? And if so, what are a few things you're doing to combat the perception? And I'd like to start with Todd, and then Mike chime in as well.
So I think if people are saying that they have a feeling of distrust of the government, then it's legitimate and valid, and that's something that we have to acknowledge. I think that there's a lot of reasons for distrust, and you can be distrustful for a lot of different reasons. A lot of the time, you may not have enough information or be getting the right information from the government about why they're making decisions. It may be that your government's hiding something from you. I don't think that's the case in our case. But in general, what I've noticed is that the more confusing a situation is and the less clarity there is on the solutions, then the more people start to develop a feeling of distrust. We're in a really confusing time right now. So many things have changed at the federal level. So many things are changing here in the Puget Sound economically. Our demographics are changing, we're aging. We want our environment to be better, but we also want affordable housing. All these things are making a lot of really challenging conversations, making us have those in a way that we're not used to. All right, so what are we doing about it? I think one of the things that we're trying to do is improve our processes in City Hall. So if you don't really have a lot of coherent processes, which I think we have fewer than we need, it's hard for us to say, here's why our budget decisions were made, here's how they're best serving you, and here's all of your different opportunities to plug in. I think we need to do better at that. We're working on it. Literally, I've had 2 meetings about that today. We're trying to engage more with the public. So whether that's in places like Facebook and Instagram, those aren't deep engagement, but places like this are. And you see, we have the entire director team here, and we'll be here individually to answer questions. I think that's an important piece. And I think the other thing that we're trying to do is gauge your sentiment better. We haven't been doing that very well in a number of different ways. So there's been a number of different ways that we've been failing in doing that. We started a community survey 2 years ago. We just finished, maybe some of you have got off the phone with them, our second iteration of that community survey to ask you how you're doing, how you're feeling. One of the things that Mike was really adamant about doing when we did that last one was when there were questions that were confusing to us was to get together focus groups to talk with members of the public about what that really means. Like, you're worried about growth. What is the thing underlying that? And how do you reconcile that with our need to build more housing? So all those different ways, and even business licenses or permitting, looking for ways to survey the people, our permittees or our licensees. How do we serve you better? Those are a bunch of different things that we're trying to implement to not just have transactional communication, but relational communication and ongoing communication and engagement with you.
I only have 2 things to add to that. One is government moves at the speed of trust. And we have to have trust. Government moves at the speed of trust. And second, when I hear those words, I think it's important, as Todd sort of suggested, is to probe what is behind those words. Because we interact with you multiple times every day in a lot of different ways. So you're on the roads a lot of times. Do you not trust the roads or the streetlights? What about the water? Every time you take a sip, is it the water you don't trust? That's all government, right? So it's really important when we hear those words that we understand specifically what is it that you don't trust so that we can work on that.
All right, for our final question of this portion before we move to the bowl, this is another question for Andy in Public Works and Mayor Mike. With the proposed Linwood wastewater treatment expansion, to not the Edmonds wastewater treatment, but the proposed expansion to the Linwood treatment plant that is very proximate or even in Edmonds, Edmonds citizens will currently account for just over 10% of treatment capacity and will be responsible for part of the currently estimated $330 million total. What steps will Edmonds take to ensure financial oversight of this project?
Okay, that's on. So we've attended one workshop. We're going to attend the next workshop, that being myself, the city engineer, as well as our engineering manager, the utility engineering manager. They being Linwood have contracted a team of experts from across the world, actually. It was really pretty interesting and fascinating to be part of the conversation. They are not very far at all. They're still talking about the important things that actually do make costs increase or decrease on a project. Those being like, do you want 2 instead of just having 1? That usually doubles the cost, right? But some things in wastewater, you do need that, and some things you don't. And so they are letting us be part of that conversation. They've definitely took our input. We went through a workshop for 3 hours. We're doing another one here soon. That in itself, I think, is the best way we can make sure that the costs aren't exorbitantly over what they're going to be. Wastewater plants are extremely expensive, and they're expensive primarily because we can't fail. Like, we have to have 2 of everything almost, like power supply, and then you have a generator. Do you have 2 different systems to handle the solids? Like, you literally need to have a plan B, because the wastewater doesn't stop coming to the plant. And we can't discharge untreated wastewater out into the Sound at 4 million gallons a day. Well, that's our plant. I don't know what Linwood does, but it's a high stakes. The thing that keep public works directors up at night is their plants. I had a water plant as well. Same thing. We're creating drinking water out of the Skagit River. at that location. But there is no fail. You can't just like, oops, we can't really produce water now and turn it off. That's just not an option. It's the same with wastewater. So yes, we are tracking. We are working with them. They're not very far along. That estimate is literally a very conceptual estimate that they've put out there already. They're just now talking about how to size it and model it and the level of redundancy. So that's it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. As I said, we're going to transition to the bowl now. So the wonderful Nicole is going to move into the front row. And to make sure that you know our hands are tied here, we're going to ask the members of the front row to draw these questions for us. Thanks, Nicole. All right, so the first question is, are you in favor of the mayor or manager form of government? And I'll let Mike delegate, but we'll start with him.
Because I'm not going to have an opinion. It is a conversation that you all should have. Certainly I have skin in that game. There are advantages and disadvantages both ways. One of the advantages and one of the reasons that I asked for and that council provided funds for was a city administrator, because we mayors come and go, and we come with different amounts of background and skills. And the city manager or city administrator, this is their job, this is their profession, and it provides continuity as well as a skill level. So that is an advantage. You can hire a bad mayor. You can hire a bad mayor, you haven't. You can also hire a bad city manager. You can get rid of one of us every 4 years. The other one is more expensive, and you can get rid of more frequently. Personally, I like having 3 branches to government because you can hold each branch accountable, and I think there's an advantage to that. So it's a conversation that's going to go on, and I think it's a healthy conversation, but there are advantages and disadvantages. Those are just a couple of top-level thoughts.
Next question. Oh,
I can just add to that a little bit. So I've worked for both strong mayor form of government and city manager form of government. Like the mayor said, you don't know what you're going to get. One thing about a city manager, well, 2 things. One of them is that you have a pool to choose from, just like who runs for office. But these are going to be for sure. I don't know if you know about this story about the mayor down in I think it was what county was it? I think it was Mason County. Anyways, you could really pick the wrong mayor. That guy was on the news all the time by hiring his brother and like just all sorts of stuff that. But also with the city manager, you got to keep in mind too, it's the exact same as it is now, where the staff just report to the city manager, like we just report to the mayor. So there's no kind of win there. But I've seen both work really well. It's really like who you elect as your mayor is critically important. I always look for education and the qualifications of experience when I vote for people. So that's it. Just wanted to add that.
thank you very much. Next question is coming out of the bowl. All right. Oh. To solve the current financial problem, ... are you willing to fire underperformers?
I have. Yeah, I mean, we would do that regardless of a financial situation, not only because you need the work to get done at the highest level possible, but other star performers, if they aren't around people who are equally as skilled or passionate or committed, then you lose them. So you want to attract and retain the best possible people you can. And it's a challenge anywhere, right? Because there are certain industries, not as many people are going into those job career paths. And then if they do, are they going to go into the private sector or the public sector? And if they go into the public sector, then we're competing with everybody else. We've talked before about just recruiting police against, King County was offering a $30,000 signing bonus to steal, literally to steal other police officers. And ICE is doing exactly the same, and they're offering like a $50,000. It's called laterals to get people to leave one job and come to another. So we want to attract and retain the best possible people and create an environment. And we are lucky. We have staff here, and many of which who have been here like 20 years, or their parents were here and now working for the city, and now they're working in the city. They are committed to service and very much committed to this community. But yeah, if you don't perform, you're out.
Next bowl question. Oh. All right. The original financial gap has not been closed. We have borrowed to balance the budget. What is the magic number to cover the gap and get basic services restored and deal with deferred maintenance and make our financials sustainable?
The number does not exist. The number just does not exist because it is about choices, and levels of service. And, each one of these directors will tell you that they are barely making it work with the staff levels that they have against all sorts of standards, industry standards, national standards, standards with our comps, our comparable cities. So maintaining, we are getting by because of the quality of staff we have and their values and what they're willing to put into the city. The deferred maintenance, the consultant that did the study a few years ago had indicated it was a $40 million backlog just on our facilities. They also said it was 1.2 million, I'm thinking, I can't remember the exact number, was it, in terms of just maintaining. So to maintain the facilities at what they were, we should have been investing $1 million to a year just to keep them at that, let alone that not addressing deferred maintenance. And as you know, costs go up, and the worse a problem gets, the more expensive it gets to deal with. So that's a hole that gets deeper. And then it's just other things like level of service. And that's part of, Todd talked about the survey, and that's one of the things that helps inform what are the priorities in the community. And in the questions, we ask sort of two questions. How important is this to you, and how satisfied are you with it, which is called a gap analysis. So in some cases, we might be overperforming the importance of it, which tells us something. And in other cases, it might be this is super important, and we aren't satisfied with what you're doing, which is also good information. And so we're about to start and starting easing into this year's, for the next 2 years budgeting process. And these are exactly the questions we're going to look at. We're going to look at projecting out multiple years, that if we changed nothing and just knew about inflation and other kinds of increases, what does that mean in terms of the gap given the kinds of revenue streams that we have right now? So if nothing changed for revenue and we did nothing else for expenses except just stay with inflation and the costs were going to go up, so we can come up with a number of what is that gap and then make those kinds of choices. And that's where the kinds of engagement and decisions we have to make. But there isn't a specific number. We're going to put the sun in somebody else's eyes. Hi.
All right, Nicole's making the long journey with the bowl. You can cheer her on if you want. We're going to do one more of these. Yeah? Senator Jesse Salmon of the 32nd District. All right. Mayor Mike Rosen, do you support taking money from local parks and using it for a professional baseball stadium? You have as much time as you'd like.
Can I say hell no?
Okay, maybe one more. Thank you. All right. Affordable housing. Please list all the new ways the city is helping this situation. go to Brad.
Hello. Yep. All right. So all the new ways, I want to say that really this last year we've rezoned probably about 65 to 75% of our land. It's going to allow for middle housing, which it's not very common up here except for downtown, but in most other parts of the West Coast, it's pretty common. So anywhere that was developed between 1910 and 1930 is a very common way to address housing. So I think a lot of the projects we're going to see are going to be those smaller scale multifamily housing, and that's what we're seeing with ADUs and DADUs. I think that's probably what's going to deliver the most.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. We just got out of the state legislative session, and for the past many sessions, housing and housing affordability, housing supply has been central to that. So we've seen a real big period of deregulation, kind of forced deregulation of our housing, the kind of rules that prevent housing from being developed. So there is definitely a gap between when those policies hit the ground and when that type of construction begins. What I'll tell you, what can we do is I was really encouraged, and I've been really encouraged, particularly over this last session, about how cities are coming together with our state legislators and really trying to look for concrete solutions to it. I think cities are holding, the state legislature has been holding cities accountable and saying, look, get out of the way of housing. And now I think a lot of cities are kind of banding together and say, okay, here's what your new rules and laws have done to us, and here's what we're seeing on the ground. Here's what we think will be useful for. So I think, there's a back and forth conversation that is really just picking up speed that I'm really encouraged about. It's, it may not be enough soon enough, but I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing out there.
I would only add that our reality is we have really expensive dirt because of where we are and the desire to be here, and that by itself is, it's not North Dakota.
All right, well, thank you very much for your rapt attention during the large group portion of the evening. I'm going to pass it off to Pat Moriarty, also on the programs committee, to introduce the next portion of the evening. But I just want to say that if you rode an electric bicycle here tonight like I did, please do not vandalize public property or break traffic laws on the way home. Thank you.
Yes. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you, Mackie, for taking us through that and through those questions. And in closing, I want to say thank you again to all I'm going to do a little closing now because we're going to move into groups, and then we'll disperse from there. So I do want to thank everyone for coming. I thank the mayor for being here, thank the executive staff for being here and sharing your ideas, and I'm sure you'll have more to share as we move into the next portion. The goal of this event was to provide an efficient process for community members to ask questions and learn more about key community issues. No process is perfect, but as always, we work to create a fair, informative program, and in this instance, to ask hard questions in a way that is accessible to our audience, who come each month with a very wide range of backgrounds and understanding of our key concerns. It is important that you're all here tonight and that you continue to take part in this community process to seek understanding of some very complex issues. You've received a handout that included contact information for the city executive staff, and the mayor's contact information is at the bottom of that as well. Reach out to city council members whose contact information is on the city's website with your questions, and expect responses from the folks you're asking. We don't have round tables tonight like we usually do, But in true ECR tradition, we encourage you to talk to friends and neighbors who are here, have conversations with others about what they have learned, probe deeply, assume positive intent, and seek common ground. Because of this dialogue, we will all gain a better understanding of our community. So for the last portion, and we'll take the remaining 25 minutes or so, it is up to you folks to find the city executive staff and to take your questions to them. If you wish, you could listen to questions that others ask, or you could take your specific questions to them. We have some posters around the room, and Angie will be over there at that round table. Andy will be here, and who's over here? Lloyd Dawkins, the chief of police, will be at that. Todd will be here. Richard will be there, and Mike. You'll be, oh, I'm sorry, Brad, because Brad's here because Mike's on vacation. I'm sorry. I meant to announce that earlier. So in the next 5 minutes, it's going to be a little bit chaotic, but here are the instructions. You're to think of your question, look around and find the location, keep your questions concise, assume positive intent, and limit yourself to one question and one follow-up if others are waiting. So I'm going to ask the city executives to head off to their places, and then I'm going to have you folks head off. If you'd like to take a couple chairs and put them around a table, if that's convenient. And if you're wanting to just chit-chat with neighbors, that's wonderful. You might take those conversations out into the lobby so that we can keep this room a little bit more quiet. Thank you very much.